UFC Vegas 91. These are the full card predictions and the betting breakdown. Main event, Matthias Nicolau versus Alex Perez. I'm looking forward to talking about each of the matchups on this card. So make sure you guys smash that like button. If you're new to the channel, subscribe. Turn the post notifications on and make sure you share the video as well. And also note, I'll be live for the entire card Saturday, 4 p.m. Eastern Time. Don't miss the fight, companion. And let's get into our first fight on the card. We have Mahashate versus Gabriel Benítez. I'm going to pick Benítez to pull off an upset because I really don't feel like Mahashate is all that good. I think he got an impressive knockout in the debut against Steve Garcia, and then he kind of got exposed a bit against Huffa Garcia there afterwards. Obviously, it was takedowns that gave him difficulty, but he got touched on the feet a bit too. And last time out, Slava Claus gave him a bit of a beatdown. I know Benítez is towards the twilight of his career. He's 35. He has lost, 2 and 3 in the last 5, 1 and 3 in the last 4. I see why there wouldn't be too much love on the side of Benítez. For me, it's more I just don't think Mahashate's level is as good as potentially advertised. He's got decent stand-up, but I don't think it's that impressive. He doesn't have a lot of power in his hands. You'll say, oh, but he slept Steve Garcia. Steve Garcia came in recklessly and walked into a beautiful straight punch. Benítez fights behind a better guard. He's got faster boxing. He's got meaner kicks. I think he's better striking-wise technically, but also you add in some of the natural gifts like power and speed. It favors Benítez. It's just the concern becomes his age. I think Benítez can pull this off in an upset. I'm not telling you guys it's the lock of the century, but the dude is a dog, proven tough, fast stand-up with power. He was doing damage to David Onama in the striking before he got caught. He was winning that fight before he got knocked out. I think Benítez can beat Mahashate. I'm going to go towards him. It could be a third-round knockout. It could end up being a decision. Either way, I do think it's a fun battle of strikers. And I'm excited for Benítez not to be taking on somebody that even has that option of getting him to the ground. Mahashate has not been proven to be a good wrestler. He's a striker, pure striker. And I think Benítez is better at what he does. Plus 170 Benítez. He's a wide underdog in a fight that I think is pretty 50-50. Mahashate minus 200. What did we got? Under 2.5 is minus 125. Probably violence. Probably going under. I'm thinking later knockout is live, but it could happen any bit throughout the fight. And I think Benítez could sting Mahashate and put his lights off. Mahashate also throwing his last name out there now, Hayisaer, where it was just straight Mahashate for the longest time. So he's adding a little extension. He's going both names. So if you're seeing that last name there on the betting lines where you're looking to throw down on somebody, there he is. That's him. I'm going Benítez to pull it off, though. I think he can win this fight. I'm going to go with the underdog. I don't think he's a popular dog. We got 18% of Tapology on him. I'm curious to see in the comments how many of you guys are on Benítez. But I'm going to pick him for an upset in this fight. I think he can do it. Next fight on the card, we have ladies going after it. Ivana Petrović versus Liang. My pick is Petrović to win. She should get a stoppage on the floor. This should be one-way traffic, a beating in all honesty. Liang has wrestling and not much MMA skill to go along with it. She's got good takedowns at times, but she's kind of low fight IQ, low grappling IQ. Petrović is known for her stand-up, but she does have a lot of wins on the floor. She's consistently able to get lower-level opponents to the ground. Now, Liang has the wrestling base, but she ends up in bottom on fights. And then if you're talking about striking, Petrović could put the lights out of Liang. I think she could knock her out on the feet. Petrović is substantially better than Liang. Liang's 3 fights down. Looking at them, J.J. Aldrich destroyed her on the ground. Gomez Juarez chinned her on the feet. And then Carnelossi ground and pound. And if you look at Petrović, 1 fight in the UFC. It was a loss, unfortunately, to Luana Carolina, who's just awkward and a tricky debut. I think Petrović can definitely win this one. I'm going to take her over Liang. I think she pulls this one off. Looking at odds for this fight, Liang is a plus 400 underdog. Petrović minus 550, the favorite. There's no love for Liang. I really don't think she's UFC level. That's the honest truth. She's been exposed time and time again. Over 1.5, -120. You're kind of playing with fire for the over because Petrović could end this thing in a round. I'm going to pick Ivana Petrović. I think she wins her sophomore appearance in the UFC. I don't think she's losing to Liang. I'm pretty confident she finishes her. And I think it's one-sided. Sub or knockout, maybe inside distance is your best bet. I wouldn't be surprised by a submission, though, but Petrović beating her up with ground and pound or even knocking her out with a punch is not out of the realm of possibility at all. Petrović to win with confidence here. Next fight on the card, Ketlen Souza versus Marnic Mann. I'm picking Ketlen Souza to win. She had a really difficult debut. They threw a Karine Silva in the debut, and Silva's on this card. We'll talk about her a little later. Ketlen Souza does have decent stand-up, though. She's okay. She's well-rounded enough. I think she's definitely better than Marnic Mann. Marnic Mann's never impressed me, from Contender Series loss to UFC debut loss. She's a tough girl that brings, I guess, some pressure. She's got an okay enough stand-up. She's tough, but she's going to get beaten in pretty much every aspect of the game here. Kind of a Thai style of stand-up with Ketlen Souza. Not bad on the floor, but does give up takedowns, and she is coming off a submission loss, but Karine Silva is levels above Marnic Mann, and she's also levels above Ketlen Souza, and that was a lightning quick fight. I'm going to say Souza can win a decision off Marnic Mann. Hard-fought win. She pulls it off in the judges' scorecards. Lower level, though, between these girls. -325. She probably wins, but -325 is maybe a tad wide. Marnic Mann is +275. The ladies to go over is -255. I'm thinking these girls are going distance. I'm thinking Ketlen Souza to win. She gets out probably 3 out of 3 as far as the rounds. I really think she could outpace, man. I think she could do well in the clinch, outstrike her from distance, and even end up on top. Ketlen Souza should definitely win this fight. I'm picking her to get it done. Next fight on the card, we got Don'Tale Mayes versus Caio Machado, battle of heavyweights. I'm picking Don'Tale Mayes because I really don't think Caio Machado's good. I mean, going into his fight on Contender Series against Sheflarski, I wasn't sold on him at all. He ended up going out there and dominating Sheflarski. Machado's a good point-fighting Thai style of striker. He's a southpaw too, picks shots fairly well, but doesn't have emphatic power, isn't very athletic, really isn't quick. Both of these guys lack speed. Don'Tale Mayes is one of the slower heavyweights. Now, he is a physical specimen, 6'6", 81-inch reach. He's 2 inches taller with 3 inches in reach favoring him. I think he's the harder puncher between the two, even though a lot of times Don'Tale Mayes just can't connect with that kill switch shot. I know he knocked out Andre Arlovski, but it's, mid-40s Arlovski. Don'Tale Mayes is going distance in a lot of his fights. He does have a physicality advantage here. I'd expect him to be the stronger guy if there's takedowns. I think it's Mayes getting on top of Machado. And when you're talking about striking, it's pretty close. I'm going to go Don'Tale Mayes on the judges' scorecards. 2 big heavyweights weighing in 250 plus, and I'm picking a decision. I think this could be a bit of a clinch battle, especially we're at the apex, the smaller cage. I think it will more likely encourage them to tie up, and I think Don'Tale Mayes might land some trips against the cage, find himself on top, garner some control time. I don't think it's a super impressive fight, but I think Don'Tale Mayes is getting his hand raised. Odds for the fight. Don'Tale Mayes is an underdog, +109. Machado, -130. I'm kind of surprised to see that. I assume that Don'Tale Mayes would have been a slight favorite here. At open, he opened up at what? Even money, -110. And over is expected at -170 for a 2.5 over. It's a little sweaty betting heavyweight overs, especially with guys that, maybe could knock each other out, but I'm not anticipating a finish. I'm going to call Don'Tale Mayes on the scorecards. I'll predict it goes over. I think Mayes as an underdog wins, but yeah, I'm surprised to see he's a dog. I think he easily could have been the favorite. Longtime UFC vet, win over Arlovski. They got to count for something. He fought Cyril Gane. He's been in there with some decent guys. I think close fight, Mayes pulls it off against Caio Machado. Next fight on the card, we have Austen Hubbard versus Michal Figlak. I'm going to pick Austen Hubbard. I'm going to go with the Ultimate Fighter Redemption veteran. I know it wasn't the name officially this season. It was Veterans versus Prospects, but he redeemed himself. I mean, he beat Roosevelt Roberts on that season of Tough, and then obviously he lost to Kurt Holloway in the actual UFC finale for that season. But Austen Hubbard has decent stand-up game. He's pretty solid with takedown defense for the most part. You saw him break Max Rushkoff years ago, who was supposed to be a good wrestler coming into the UFC. Figlak has okay hooks, and he has takedowns in the arsenal, but he's not really that impressive with it. If you looked at his last fight against Faraz Ziam, he got outworked in the grappling by Ziam, who's known for kickboxing. Figlak's getting picking up and thrown around. Austen Hubbard can stop takedowns from Figlak. I think he can do some damage on the feet too. I really think I got to go with the veteran. I'm going Hubbard to win, unless Figlak has made some pretty vast improvements, because he's been out since a year and 7 months ago, so it's been a while. But he's going to have to make some real improvements, man. He took a pretty clean loss to Ziam. Hasn't fought anybody else in the UFC, whereas Hubbard's been in the UFC, in and out for a bit. Came through the ringer of the Ultimate Fighter to get back. Yes, lost to Kurt Holloway, but beat a legit guy in Roosevelt Roberts on the show. I don't think Michal Figlak's all that good. He rips some power shots. He spams some takedowns, but he's not all that effective. And I think Austen Hubbard with higher level experience, double or more than double the fights. You got to go towards Austen Hubbard to win. I think he can get it done. I'm leaning decision, because Figlak, it doesn't look like he's chinny, and Hubbard's not Mr. Magic with the power. As far as the odds for this fight, Austen Hubbard is currently a plus 133 underdog. Another dog? Really? Figlak should be a favorite against Hubbard after that Ziam performance? I don't think so. Plus 133. I'm going dog here. Over 2.5 is minus 260. Figlak's a minus 153 favorite. I don't think Austen Hubbard should be an underdog. At worst, maybe even money. But what has Figlak shown? He was 8-0 in Cage Warriors. And now, okay, coming into the UFC, you get bullied by Ziam a year and a half plus ago. And now you take on Austen Hubbard, who's a tricky veteran and known for solid takedown defense and is always in good shape. I think Figlak could gas and get beaten up in the third round. I'm going Austen Hubbard. I think that he wins this fight. He should get it done. Slight underdog, too. I'm going with Hubbard as a dog. Next fight on the card. It's our featured prelim. We got Yahya versus Victor Henry. I am going with Victor Henry, but when I saw the lines, I thought this was a mistake. But no, Victor Henry is like a 5-1 favorite here against Yahya. Now, I get why he'd be the favorite. Yahya is pretty much a one-dimensional, old-school Brazilian jiu-jitsu fighter that has actually a pretty quick shot, though. He gets in on the legs really fast, and if he's on the ground, he can do good work. I mean, he's got wins as of, somewhat recently. Ray Rodriguez, who's no longer with the promotion. Kyung Ho Kyung, who's a good striker, beat him 2.5 years ago. Montel Jackson destroyed him last time. It was a vicious knockout loss, but he was in on a takedown a couple times against Montel. He had moments. Granted, he was on the bottom. He's willing to accept bottom position, which in modern MMA I don't like, especially with Victor Henry, who's a Josh Barnett prospect. And you know Josh Barnett was a tremendous grappler at heavyweight at one time. And I think that Victor Henry's got his P's and Q's pretty much checked off nicely in the grappling department. He's going to be a lot better in the stand-up, and I think he can definitely stop the wrestling onslaught of Yahya and fight off the grappling. I think Victor Henry's grappling holds up fine. I think he wins, and he probably gets a knockout. But very wide favorite against an awkward guy like Yahya, who's got a fuckload of UFC experience. Plus 385 for Yahya. Victor Henry at minus 510. Looking at under is minus 145. They're expecting it to end inside distance. I think Victor Henry could touch him up on the feet. He could sting Yahya, but don't be shocked if we go distance and Henry beats him on the scorecards. But I'm just thinking, 39-year-old Yahya caught striking with Victor Henry for rounds, he's going to get beaten up. Henry's done well in the UFC. I mean, no contest with Basharat, so that cancels out. Tony Gravely, close split decision. Gravely's a fucking physical specimen. A Sun Sao lost, win over Hani Barchalos. I think Victor Henry can beat Yahya in this fight. And I do think there's a real chance that he chins him. So we're going Henry, we're going knockout, but damn, the money line's crazy. Next fight brings us to our main card opener. If you guys haven't yet, make sure you smash the like button. If you're new to the channel, subscribe. We got Jonathan Pearce versus David Onama. I'm picking David Onama to knock Jonathan Pearce out. Jonathan Pearce has good pressure wrestling. His game is based upon taking you down, wearing you down, and beating you up. David Onama on the other side has serious knockout power. He's got good athleticism. And what I've noticed is consistently improving skills, specifically that takedown defense, right? Early in his UFC run, he was taken down a lot by Mason Jones. And we've seen Onama taken down a couple of times, but his get-ups also seem pretty evolved too. Jonathan Pearce is going to look to smother David Onama, use the cage, get him down, jump the back, lock in a choke, or just wear on him for 3 rounds. The worry with Onama is definitely the gas tank. With real explosive punchers like him, the 3rd round he can weather. He did a lot of damage against Nate Landwehr and lost. He knocked out Benítez, even though he was getting touched up a bit in the striking. He slept Benítez. Last time out, he got a knockout win over Gabriel Santos, who was actually supposed to be pretty good after debuting looking beautiful against Lerone Murphy. So I think David Onama has the nuclear option to find the Jonathan Pearce chin. I know Pearce is going to be spamming takedowns. And if Onama's consistent rate of improvement continues in this fight here, he should be able to stop or at least get back up to the feet enough times where if Jonathan Pearce is caught in a striking match, he is not going to survive. David Onama will knock Jonathan Pearce out on the feet. So yes, David Onama needs to keep this fight standing. There's a risk, right? Because Jonathan Pearce is pretty accurate with some takedowns and pressure. But he's been taken down a bit too. He's not always one-way trafficking everybody. He's spotty sometimes. His positions get flipped. He's on bottom sometimes. He got submitted last time against Brito. I think Onama can fight off the grappling and land a chinning knockout. Impressive knockout. I'm going Onama for the win by KO. David Onama, plus 150. I got an underdog. Jonathan Pearce, minus 175. Fight going what? Under 2.5 is minus 140. Over 1.5, minus 211. Very interesting. Those over-unders are interesting. Onama's live for the knockout, probably for the first 2.25 rounds. After the 3rd, if Pearce is still on him with takedowns and he gets him down again in the 3rd, we know it's over with. But I think David Onama is pretty dangerous for a good portion of this fight. And Jonathan Pearce better be on point AF getting these takedowns and controlling David Onama. Because if Onama's on his feet, he's throwing hard and it takes 1 from him. And I think he lands that 1. I'm going David Onama, knockout win as an underdog over Jonathan Pearce to start off the main card with some fire. Next fight on the card, we have Tim Means versus Uros Medic. I'm going with Uros Medic to win. I almost did it. I almost called Tim Means for an upset, but Medic is fast on the feet. He's got good pop, and I went back and rewatched the past 2 from Medic. This fight here against Mitabek Orbay is something that I felt like if you just remember it back, you're not going to realize how well Medic was doing striking. He was actually really cracking Orbay. Now, on the ground, Orbay dusted him. But Orbay's better than a Tim Means as far as grappling control and submission threats. Now, he was dropped against Matt Summelsberger. I get it, red flag, but he also did F him up. Tim Means on the other side is an absolute dog. Brings the fire each and every time. And I still will say he's a live underdog. He's not a terrible underdog. If you're looking for a dog and maybe you're disagreeing with my side here, I almost was on Tim Means. This is not a high-confidence Uros Medic lock of the century. It's like a, 55-60% call. That's the honesty behind it. I think Tim Means can make this a dirty fight, maybe even club and sub Uros Medic with a big shot and then going for the sub. That's his best way to win. Medic's recovery isn't bad. But Uros Medic at 170 has a lot more power than he did at 55. I think he's going to be more strong and able to fend off any potential grappling positions. When you're talking about striking, Medic is definitely better. Medic is the better technical striker, but Tim Means is the essence of a dog. And as an underdog, that's the type of guy you want to back. But I do think Uros Medic can win. I think there's a chance Medic could pull it off by a knockout. I think there's a chance that he could get an upset, a competitive decision. Tim Means by upset, though, is still accidentally slipping out of my mouth. And I guess it's because I'm not going to discredit him. 1.5 years ago, he gave Max Griffin a really hard fight. Alex Morono caught him with the sub. Last time he beat Fialho. Granted, Andre Fialho has become a bit of a punching bag in his later run in his career, but still, heavy-handed, tough customer for the most part. Uros Medic on the other side, I think, a little faster, better from distance, snappier strikes. I think Uros can pull this one out. I'm going to go with him. I'm going to nervously pick Uros Medic to pull it off against Tim Means. Now, as far as the odds, plus 270 for Tim Means. Uros Medic at minus 320. That's terrible. Uros Medic should not be this big of a favorite. These lines are fucking horrendous, man. This fight here is actually really stressing me out. I'm not going to lie to you. Because as I'm sitting here talking, I'm like, damn, Tim Means club and sub is sounding good. So much more experience than Uros Medic. You know what? Coin flip time, okay? Because I feel like I'm down the center, and I don't like this feeling. I don't like this feeling. Heads Medic by knockout, tails Tim Means by submission. It's heads. We're sticking with Medic. Ride with the side that I initially wrote down, even though I had a little gut turn and twist of Tim Means. We'll see if the coin flip stands. Ultimately, you can see it's a Uros Medic pick, and it was that pick, but Tim Means is a savage. So it's a worrisome pick for sure. If you're betting Uros Medic at minus 340, I think you're crazy. I think you're nuts. I think you're better off betting Tim Means because he's a live dog, and he's got a chance in this fight. Next fight on the card is Jhonata Diniz versus Austen Lane. I'm going Jhonata Diniz to chin him. He should absolutely dust Austen Lane in 4 minutes or less. Austen Lane is an ex-football player. He's an athletic striker, but he's reckless, wild, and hittable. And Jhonata Diniz is a former high-tiered kickboxer. He's got a ton of experience in kickboxing. Yes, 6-0 in MMA. Developing for MMA. Still a knockout on Contender Series. Still has legit power. And I think he's going to be comfortable at the Apex after that Contender Series fight. So this is a good way to debut for him inside of the UFC. And Austen Lane is a guy that keeps the chin up high, and he fights recklessly, and he comes inside like a madman at times, and he's so there to be hit. Diniz by knockout makes perfect sense to me. Jhonata Diniz, KO win. I think he's dusting, absolutely dusting Austen Lane. And Austen Lane years ago lost to Hardy, Greg Hardy. Where are the odds here? I'm losing the odds. Where we at? Diniz, minus 225. Lane, plus 190. Give me a knockout. Under 1.5 is minus 275. It probably is going under 1.5. Austen Lane, if he's going to be smart here, looks to wrestle. He definitely needs to look to get this fight to the ground. But he's known as an MMA striker. And he fights a bit recklessly. Brutally knocked out by Justin Tafa last time. And I think Diniz can follow suit and get a vicious knockout win too. I'm going with the better kickboxer, the more schooled guy on the feet. I'm going with Jhonata Diniz to chin Austen Lane. Should be a good fight, though. I'm excited for it. Next fight on the card is our featured bout. It's Karine Silva versus Ariane Lipski. I'm going with Karine Silva. Lipski ain't beating her. Silva's too good. She's really fast in the stand-up and uses low kicks well. She also times takedowns nicely and has like super dangerous submissions. Lipski has not been submitted inside of the UFC, but like some years ago, you remember her on her back and beaten up by Antonina Shevchenko. She's definitely improved the holes as far as the grappling defense, but with Lipski, she needs a big strike on the feet that absolutely dazes Silva, because if not, I don't care how much improvement she's made, it's not going to be consistent enough to stop Karine Silva from wanting to get her to the floor. I think Karine Silva takes her down. I think Karine Silva wins this fight, and I actually think she's going to submit Ariane Lipski. I picked Lipski last time. She was an underdog here against Casey O'Neill, and I was on Lipski's side. I'm not normally a Lipski doubter. I like Ariane Lipski. I just think Karine Silva is an absolute problem for these women at 125, and I think stylistically she's a bad matchup for Lipski. Athleticism, takedowns, grappling, and legit submission threat. Karine Silva's looking to move to 4-0 inside of the UFC, and I think this win here will be massive for her career. Silva is currently minus 155, but she opened up even money and was even an underdog last week. But then it's gone way down. Last week she was a dog. If you got her last week, you're a savage. Plus 135 for Lipski. I think Karine Silva wins. What do we got, a 2.5? Over 2.5 is plus money. So even the books are looking at it thinking Karine Silva's got a chance to submit Lipski, who's not been submitted. But she's been beaten up on the ground. She's been beaten up on the ground. Silva can do some damage with ground and pound. I think she'll still find a submission. I think Karine Silva's just really good right now. And Lipski's improved for sure. These girls are the same age. It's just, I think that Karine Silva has a little more. And the grappling skill set's there. I think she's a problem at 125. I think this matchup here is great for her because Lipski's like a stern test to see how far up you're going to run. I think Silva can do something here. Silva should be the first to tap out Lipski in the UFC. I'm going Karine Silva over Ariane Lipski. I think she gets it done. In last fight, she avenged her early loss in her career to Marina Moroz. She subbed her back after getting subbed their first time out. Silva's a problem. Silva for the win. She's going to finish Lipski by submission. Next fight is our co-main event of the evening. Ryan Spann versus Bogdan Guskov. I'm going with Ryan Spann to dust Bogdan Guskov. I think he knocks him out. I know Ryan Spann's last fight was a very disappointing loss to Anthony Smith, who seems like he's fallen apart since that loss. But let's take some things into consideration for Ryan Spann. He did a lot of damage to Anthony Smith. Anthony Smith, then thereafter, yes, started to fall apart. Fought against Khalil Roundtree recently on short notice and got absolutely dusted. Short notice, and damage was done by Superman Spann. Spann's got legit punching power, and he's got fast hands too. And if he stays off of his back, he's pretty set to knock out a Bogdan Guskov who makes technical mistakes, keeps the hands low, likes to brawl, hittable for sure, at a speed disadvantage. Guskov's going to have to land some type of in-close, wide shot to put Spann down, whereas I think Spann from the longer range can snipe a Bogdan Guskov. Even though Guskov brings the guard up as he comes close, having the hands low a lot like that against somebody long like Ryan Spann can get you stunned bad. And I think Ryan Spann is going to do just that. I think he's going to stun Bogdan Guskov and he's going to chin him. Now, I have been against Bogdan Guskov in every one of his UFC fights. I looked like a buffoon when it was the Zach Pauga fight, but I did say he was going to get exposed by Volkan Ozdemir before, and he definitely did. And I think Ryan Spann is way too much of a level jump. You beat Zach Pauga, who's now released from the UFC, and now you're jumping in, taking on Ryan Spann. Way too high up the ranks. They're pushing Guskov really fast because he's got an entertaining style, but that style is going to get him knocked out. Ryan Spann for the win by knockout. He's still young. Ryan Spann has a ton of high-level experience, and he's only 32 years of age. Guskov is not even what? I guess he's exactly a year and a month younger, pretty much. And now what? Third UFC fight? Ryan Spann's going to get him. He's going to dust him. Knockout win for Ryan Spann. He's a minus 205 favorite, as he should be. Guskov plus 175 the odds as an underdog here. Minus 255 for an under 1.5. I do think the way Guskov fights, he's probably getting chinned in under 1.5 rounds. I'm going Ryan Spann. I'm going knockout win. I think he's going to dust Bogdan Guskov and get an impressive knockout. 32, he's still got that fire inside, and I think he's going to send Guskov back to the unranked side of things. Main event of the evening. If you guys haven't yet, make sure you smash the likes. If you're new to the channel, subscribe. We got Matthias Nicolau versus Alex Perez. Perez jumping in on short notice, replacing Manel Kopp. Kind of dropped the hype that the main event had a good amount. Now, Alex Perez is a savage, but I got to go with Matthias Nicolau. Perez hasn't won a fight since 2020. It's been a long time. Recently, like a month ago, a little over a month ago, he took on Mokaev. And he did lose that fight against Mokaev, but he put up a gutsy effort, and he pretty much won a round there. He's got good stand-up. He's got some powerful hooks. He's got some nasty low kicks. He comes with the wrestling base. Perez is game, but I just think he's too far removed from the prime, and he's already had his thunder. He already fought for the world title. Nicolau was so close against Royval, brutally knocked out. And then he was supposed to fight Manel Kopp. That fight gets canceled. They rebook it. It gets canceled again. Nicolau's in a spot here where he can remain towards the upper echelon of the division. I think Matthias Nicolau uses a lot of lateral movement in this fight. Pretty similar style that we get from him often. Kind of stays away from Perez's power shots. I think he'll time some engagements and close the distance. I think he'll even frustrate Perez a bit from the outside. Nicolau's style is a bit frustrating, and there's a lot of boos that come through when he fights because he really does use a shitload of lateral movement. So expect a lot of that. I don't think Perez is going to have much of an advantage when they tie up and grapple. I think Nicolau could even end up on top of Alex Perez. And I do think, regardless of Nicolau's terrible loss last time out, he is a pretty cerebral fighter. And that does lead him to safety first type of fights. And his style is definitely safety first. Now, granted, last time there was no safety with Royval. Doesn't matter. He's recovered from that vicious knee knockout, and now he's taking on Alex Perez, and I think Nicolau pulls it off over the 5 rounds. I think Perez might take a round, maybe even 2, but Nicolau finishes strong, gets his hand raised, and remains in, that top 7, top 6, and, close to the title type conversation for Matthias Nicolau. And it doesn't seem like we're ever getting the rematch with Manel Kape. As far as the odds for this fight here, Nicolau is minus 180, Perez is plus 155, over 4.5 is minus 125. It's expected to go distance. I respect Perez a ton for stepping in, and he's definitely a gutsy underdog, and he's got a tricky style. But Nicolau is so safety first. I don't think he walks into some big shots. I doubt Perez is jump kneeing him. I think Nicolau can find some takedowns, unless the chin is absolutely abolished after his loss to Royval, but I think he can come back and maybe even look a bit better. Perez jumping in on short notice, but because he fought recently, expect him to be in pretty game shape. I just think he's had his time, and even though he's still young at 32, I got to go with Nicolau, who I still think has potential to fight for a world title because he's literally right there, and Perez is down 3 losses in a row. Nicolau to pull it off. I think he wins the main event. Lateral movement, counter-striking, well-timed takedowns, and clinch engagements. I feel like he's getting it on the cards. I'm not going to have you guys jumping up with excitement, but I hope I'm wrong on that. I hope this turns out to be fight of the year. I just don't think it's going to. Fight before the loss to Royval, he had beaten Matt Schnell, decision over Dvorak, Tim Elliott win, and then you see the Manel Kape win over 3 years ago now. I think Nicolau, decision win over Alex Perez. Cerebral fight IQ type of game planning that works out with counter-striking, well-timed engagements in the clinch and takedown attempts. And I think Matthias Nicolau, on the judges' scorecards, getting his hand raised. And I won't lie to you guys. The main event on this card is not the most lit fight on it. The co-main event is absolutely sick. I'm very excited for that. The main event's a bit of a dwindle down, but that's what we get post 300. That's how it goes. They had to stack 300. Coming here, it's going to dwindle a little bit. It is what it is, because the next week after, we got UFC 301 with the flyweight belt on the line in Brazil. So I'm excited as hell for that. I hope you guys enjoyed the breakdown. Make sure you smash the like button. If you're new to the channel, subscribe. And turn those post notifications on. Don't just leave them on personalized. Put them on all so you don't miss a video, because I got daily content and live streams on the channel. I appreciate everybody watching. Let me know what you thought in the comments. And if you got nothing to say in the comments, or you just want to support your boy, drop a W in the chat to boost the algorithm. Thank you guys so much, and I'll see you all in the next one. Peace.